office is quite recent in this federation, so to speak. So when I asked you to give me a few hints about the thematic framework for the discussion, you gave me three themes on which I'm going to share with you my views. The first one, which is actually the topic, the main topic of the day, is the role of cultural diversity in any peace process. I will come to this after saying a few things about the other two. Number two was the conurbation or continuous network of urban communities of cultural diversity in sustainable peace. Number three, what are the main challenges regarding peace in the multicultural society of today? So let us begin. The continuous network of urban communities of cultural diversity in sustainable peace. What is the meaning of sustainable? We hear it a lot nowadays. That which is capable of being sustained. Also relating to or being a method of using a resource so that the resource is not depleted or permanently damaged. This is, for instance, a sustainable technique. What is then sustainable peace? In simple words, the condition of no conflict, violence, jealousy, and living with mutual cooperations called peace. Any such situation is known as sustainable peace. What do we mean by sustainable development? This is a development that meets the needs of the present without, though, compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. What would be the role of peace in sustainable development? Peace is a key component of sustainable development. A healthy political economic environment is absolutely necessary for development. And in conflict-ridden communities, political economic operations are disrupted due to the unreliable social services and the prevalence of social problems such as poverty, hunger, inequality. Let us pick the second theme of the tripartite thematic framework. What are the main challenges regarding peace in the multicultural society of today? The main problems encountered in a multicultural environment could be listed as follows: conflict, social differentiation and division, assimilation constraints, difficulty of communication, and cultural erosion. So then what are the challenges of peace culture? Violence, conflict, misunderstanding. These are the greatest obstacles to peace and development. Peace requires unity among the people, cooperation, and the feeling of family belonging. And also there must be the culture of negotiation and understanding within individual, community, and society. What are the problems and challenges of living in a multi-ethnic society prejudice, that is, intolerance and mistreatment of a person because of their race, religion, sexuality, disability, or political beliefs. Next to prejudice, there is stereotyping, making an unfair assumption or generalization about a person based on an aspect of their cultural identity. What challenges does cultural differentiation present? Colleagues from some cultures may be less likely to let their voices be heard. Integration across multicultural teams can be difficult in the face of prejudice or negative cultural stereotypes. Professional communication can be misinterpreted or difficult to understand across languages and cultures. What are then the negative effects of differentiation? Cultural diversity can affect collaboration in numerous ways. Negative effects can include miscommunication, creation of barriers, and dysfunctional adaptation behaviors. If those are the negative effects, what are the benefits of differentiation? Enhanced creativity, a diverse context of collaboration allows for more ideas and processes. This diversity of talent means a broader range of features and eventually skills among partners, as well as a diversity of experiences and perspectives, which increases the potential for enhanced creativity. Now let me come to the main theme of the forum, the role of cultural diversity in a peace process. The main question here is, how does culture contribute to peace building? Well, any culture-driven development which acknowledges diversity and promotes the ability of individuals to freely participate in cultural life and access cultural assets will considerably contribute to the building of a culture of living together, and thus to peace and human security. What is then the purpose of cultural diversity? Learning about other cultures help us understand different perspectives within the world in which we live. It helps dispel negative stereotypes and personal biases about different groups. In addition, cultural diversity helps us recognize and respect, quote unquote, ways of being that are not necessarily our own. What is the aim of the culture of peace? A culture of peace is an integral approach to preventing violence and violent conflicts, and an alternative to the culture of war, culture of violence, based on education for peace, the promotion of sustainable economic and social development, respect for human rights, equality between women and men, between women and men, democratic participation, etc. How can one reconcile the conflicts of culture? The best way to resolve or handle cultural conflict is by learning about other cultures. Institutions like universities, organizations like UNESCO, and international networks work in diverse environments. This gives people the opportunity to interact regardless of culture. What are the effects of cultural diversity? Cultural diversity in any social project, say the workplace, has grown as a trend over the passage of time with the increase of globalization in the world. One positive effect is the stakeholders, for instance, the employees, belonging to different cultures, usually have different ways of thinking and can thus analyze a matter from a variety of perspectives. Why is it important to know cultural differences? It promotes understanding. Lots of problems can arise from misunderstandings, especially because we live in a multicultural world. By learning and understanding different cultures, one understands why people do things the way they do. When one identifies with other people, one gets to sympathize with their situation. How does one show respect for cultural diversity? By developing cultural self-awareness, learning to appreciate and value diverse views, by avoiding imposing his or her own values, and by resisting stereotyping. What are the features of peace culture? In the resolution of 1992, the United Nations General Assembly considered that a culture of peace consists, quote, of values, attitudes, and behaviors that reflect and inspire social interaction and sharing based on the principles of freedom, justice, and democracy, human rights, tolerance, and solidarity. How do we explain cultural diversity? Is the existence of a variety of cultural groups within a society. It's a very simple definition. Cultural groups can share many different characteristics, such as culture, religion, ethnicity, language, nationality, sexual orientation, class, gender, age, disability, health differences, geographic location, and lots of other things. How could we define cultural diversity? Cultural diversity is about appreciating that society is made up of many different groups with different interests, skills, talents, and needs. It also means that one recognizes that people in a society can have differing religious beliefs and sexual orientation than his or her own. How does culture create conflict? Conflict is triggered when there are cultural differences between individuals within an organization or through general interaction with one another. This often leads to cross-cultural conflict, which generally occurs in the context that individuals are not willing to understand each other's diversity in cultures. How does cultural diversity affect decision-making? It fosters critical thinking, argumentation, analysis, and collaboration. Individuals from different cultures tend to have different views of the stuff, which affects individuals' cognition, goals in social interactions, and consequently influences their behavior and goals in decision making. Why is it important to know your culture? Learning to acknowledge and understand other cultures by recognizing your own. Those who work or live around people from other cultures understand the importance of learning about the differences that surround them. Awareness of our own culture is important because it can keep us from projecting our values onto others. What are the challenges of peace culture? We mentioned that before. Violence, conflict, misunderstanding. These are the greatest obstacles to peace and development. Culture of peace education is important because it transforms the design of education curricula so as to promote qualitative values, attitudes, and behaviors of a culture of peace, including peaceful conflict resolution, dialogue, consensus building, and active nonviolence. What is the significance of the peace culture when we say that peace culture should begin from home? Peace begins at home. Is a peace education initiative that aims at creating a culture of peace in schools and communities. The project provides a platform to discuss topics such as protecting young people from violence and bullying, while examining cultural and systematic levels of oppression. What is peace and types of peace? Generally, peace is classified into two types: internal peace and external peace. Internal peace is called by another word inner peace, which is the peace of mind or soul. If there is to be peace in the world, there must be peace in the nations. If there is to be peace in the nations, there must be peace in the hearts of the people. What is another word for cultural diversity? Multiculturalism, pluralism, diversity, cross-culturalism, ethnic inclusiveness, ethnic mosaic, multi-existence, multi-perspective. How does the culture affect communication? How does culture affect communication? Culture plays an important role in shaping the style of communication. Generally, people react to how we speak rather than what we say. The culture in which individuals are socialized influences the way they communicate, and the way individuals communicate can change the culture. How can students play an important role in the development of peace culture? Students help in assurance of social and economic development. Students help in promotion and respect towards democracy of human rights and fundamental freedom. Students get knowledge about development of peace. They help in development of peace culture. Students help in assurance of social and economic development. And to conclude this section, what is peace? How is peace defined by UNESCO. According to UNESCO, peace is more than the absence of war. It is living together with our differences of sex, race, language, religion, or culture, while furthering universal respect for justice and human rights on which such coexistence depends. And UNESCO grants that peace is the most precious possession of humanity. Let me say a few things about the importance of youths. The World Youth Forum, which was held in Cairo in 2017, organized the first session on its second day under the theme, "The Differences Among Cultures and Civilizations, Conflict or Integration." Let me conclude. This is a very challenging times, as many issues across the globe are testing people's ability and will to live in harmony together, including violence, terrorism, the rise of nationalism, the threat of fundamental values, social inequality, and the increasing number of refugees. Forums like ours are timely and quite necessary for the humanity, as they help to create a platform, among other things, for young people. I emphasize this, encouraging them to become thinkers and actors of development, as well as contributing to changing deeply rooted social stereotypes and misconceptions through dialogue. These global challenges push us to re-examine our identity and the need for intercultural dialogue to overcome differences and bring the world together around the concept of a global human module, where all people are considered, quote, citizens of humanity, close quote. Dialogue is important to give the world an agenda for action developed based on tolerance, mutual respect, and fairness. These actions can only succeed if people are clear about the foundation of cultures and civilizations, which can only be reached through dialogue. Intercultural dialogue requires a collective effort to establish shared knowledge and values, with an eye on mutual respect and understanding, efforts that can make people look at the issues that divide them in a new light. These efforts include creating platforms for partnership, promoting education, innovative use of media and communication technologies, and integration of young people from both genders. It also requires a recognition of equality between cultures, and that every individual has equal access to fundamental rights and to practice these rights. Young people can act as a bridge between cultures and serve as key agents in promoting peace and intercultural understanding, as they have the creative energy and leadership, in addition to comprising about 20% of the world's population. They are the future leaders and the current change agents. They are not just beneficiaries, but rather essential actors in creating solutions to issues faced by people in the world today. Moreover, there is a need to offer youth the opportunities to meet with each other, to travel, exchange ideas, discover other cultures, and volunteer to enrich themselves from the differences and to contribute to holistic peace. There is also a need for tailored capacity building programs targeting young women and men. Special attention to media is also important, as it plays a vital role in disseminating messages of tolerance, diversity, and peace, especially the internet. At the same time, it is important to counter negative narratives through spreading positive discourse. Very quickly, I end by saying that I and my team at the University of Athens, we are in collaboration with other academic, artistic, and education institutes, organizations, and networks, running currently a series of projects that they all involve, one way or another, Egypt and Egyptians. I very quickly just give you the titles. One work has been is already completed. It concerns the video life stories of migrants in Greece, which is about 4 videos that we shot together. And the theme is Egyptian migrants living in Greece. Migrants, economic migrants, not refugees. Number 2, which is ongoing, is in collaboration with the Egyptian friend of mine, the ethnomusicologist Mina Girgis, who is the producer and founder of the Nile Project. The Nile Project. I don't know if you know this, but it was a great project and still going on. It was met with great success in the Western world and elsewhere. Very briefly, in January 2013, the Nile Project brought together 18 musicians from Uganda, Ethiopia, South Sudan, and Egypt to experiment with a collaborative creative process that will last 10 days. Each musician brought 2 songs. In the mornings, they taught one another their respective musical languages. In the afternoon, they played musical chairs in duos, trios, and quartets. So this project, which involved many people, is still going on, and I think it has a great potential to promote the ideas touched upon earlier. Third project is in collaboration with King's College, London, and the Professor Martin Stokes. This project concerns a revisiting of the famous Cairo Congress that took place in 1932. This Congress was the first large-scale forum to present, discuss, document, and record the many musical traditions of the Arab world, from North Africa and the Middle East. In this project, of course, other communities, multi-ethnic communities that thrived back then, one of them is the Greek community in Alex and Cairo, will be part of the revisiting of this great landmark. Last but not least is my collaboration with Sheikh Mahmoud Yassin Al-Tohami, who is the head and founder of many organizations concerning chanting. And with him, we are developing a plan of joint action focused on the resurrection of the Arabic language through popular folk music by reviving cultural heritage and redistributing melodies, cooperating with European musicians, and organizing concerts, presentations, and workshops with anthropologists and ethnomusicologists. Also developing and reviving a cultural awareness of Sufi ritual performances and practices through Maulid, Dhikr, praise, and Hadra, and forming a female chanting choir from Egypt and abroad. So these are some concrete examples of the work that is being done nowadays in collaboration with Egyptian partners about Egypt, and in an international, always an international framework of promoting cultural diversity in a peace dialogue. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you, Professor Pavlos. As usual, you are friend of Egypt. It's amazing what you have said. You raise many points. Of course, unfortunately, I don't have right to address any question for you because we have another friend. But you raise many important issues. Issue of multicultural, issue of the stereotyping, issue of the stockholders, issue of multi-ethnics, and this is very important, but you discuss about two important issues. Maybe I will discuss with you when we meet each other about the cultural diversity and the decision maker. This is very, 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 very important issue, and how the culture also affect in this matter. We discuss also about the important issue about the culture diversity and the peace process, because I think in our area we have passed a lot of war in Mediterranean normally about this issue. Raise a lot of war. So we have listened to the voice of Greece, Mr. Pablo. Now I go to the voice for Germany, and I'm asking Dr. Andreas Hermann. We will share with you your view, and later on we will open the panel for audience to start to receive the question. Dr. Hermann, the panel with you. Thank you. The voice, can you please open? Can you open? Yes.
Now. Okay, now we have it. Okay. So, thank you very much for the invitation and give me the possibility to speak here in your meeting. Thank you very much. So it's very nice to see also familiar faces. So I greet everybody from Egypt I met before, and of course, everybody else. Thank you very much for the contribution. We heard so many important thoughts. I have similar ideas, similar thoughts. Maybe I will emphasize some other aspects. So let me start the perspective of dialogue in the light of cultural diversity. There are two aspects mentioned in the topic: peace dialogue on the one hand, and cultural diversity on the other. Let me start with the second aspect, with cultural diversity. I will come to peace dialogue later. And I will start with a question. What is culture? What do we understand by culture? We usually consider music, dancing, art, clothing, different types of food as aspects of culture. And we enjoy food from different countries: Greek, Chinese, Italian food, and so on. Maybe you liked listening to a German composer like Beethoven, as I enjoy listening to jazz musicians. We consider culture in terms of these aspects as enrichment. We enjoy the variety of food and music. And probably these aspects come to our mind first when we think about culture. Of course, these are aspects of culture, visible aspects. Yet, as you know, they are not sufficient to get an idea of the very complex phenomena of culture. And it's not easy, and maybe it's not necessary to give a clear definition of what culture is. However, it is more than music, it is more than art, and more than different kind of clothing. There's a quite famous image for culture. If you read in the books on culture, you will realize that there is an example like culture is like an iceberg. An iceberg has a visible top, which is above the surface of the water, but the largest part is under the water. Culture has visible aspects and invisible. The first are clearly visible. The second one, you can guess, you can speculate. How can we understand the invisible aspects of culture? Maybe like this. Culture shapes our attitudes. Culture shapes our behavior, shapes our values, and shapes our religion. This is a very special topic within the question of culture. How is the relation between religion and culture? To make it brief, religion is a part of culture. Religion can shape culture, and culture shapes religion. We can't even that aspect now. Anyway, as children, we learned patterns of behavior. We learned patterns of thinking and so on. We received our cultural conditioning. Anthropologists like Clifford Geertz describe culture like a fabric, like a part of textile. The stories we listen to, the rules we learned, the society we live in. All this is around us and is in us, like a fabric. Culture is in a positive sense like a navigation system that guides us through our daily life. It is an orientation system. You know how to greet people. If you grew up in the Western world, you greet by shaking hands. You know how to keep the distance between people talking to each other. You learned looking in the eyes of the man, or you avoid the eye contact. It depends on in which culture you grew up. I myself spent 3 years in Nigeria, and I realized many different thinking of culture, but the way of greeting, I like it very much, because the Nigerians, they don't ask, how are you? They ask, how is your wife? How are your children? How is the work? So different types of greetings is a very famous example to get the differences of culture. Our culture is, as I said, in a positive sense, an orientation system, but in a negative sense, it is also like a net that entraps us. We are also deeply caught in our culture, especially if somebody doesn't know another culture than his own. And if he meets somebody who belongs to another culture, he realizes that his own navigation system doesn't function in every situation. It comes to disorientation. He takes his own system for granted. And if two icebergs meet, conflicts arise. And I will now mention 2 types of conflicts in the context of cultural diversity. The first one is a latent. The first one is a latent conflict, hidden reason for misunderstanding. And the second one is about power. So let me start with the hidden conflicts. What might happen if two people from different cultural background meets? There are many possibilities for misunderstanding. I give you an example from my work. A young woman with Turkish background was looking for an apartment in a German city. She found a nice flat in a house where 7 or 8 other families and couples were living. She moved in, everything was fine. But after a couple of weeks, she thought, well, this is strange. I moved in this house and nobody of the neighbors came and said hello to me. Nobody welcomed me. On the other hand, the people who already lived in that house thought and talked to each other, strange. This young woman moved in this house. She didn't come to us and she didn't introduce herself. A very typical conflict, hidden conflict. Both sides were a little confused. I will add another example which people often discussed in Germany, at least before the pandemic hit us. A Muslim man didn't shake hands with a woman. I often heard one reaction, this is unacceptable. I don't talk to this man. He looks at women as they are not equal with men, and so on. At the same time, the Muslim may think, my religion taught me to be respectful to women, and therefore I do not touch her. We could add many stories like this. I'm sure you all are specialists in this field. Most of you grew up in Egypt, you left your country, and you are living now in a different culture. I'm sure you can tell many stories about the two icebergs. I look forward to listening to your stories later on. Both sides are confused because both sides interpret the incident with their own cultural background. There is misunderstanding because different navigation systems hit each other. If the people don't know anything about culture, about their own culture, they will not understand the reason for the confusion. It's a latent conflict. And if they have to continue their cooperation, maybe they will face more critical and stressful situations. The reasons lay under the water, to take the metaphor further. Anyway, the relations are disturbed, prejudice on both sides, uncertainty, and it can start with a small irritation and maybe end with a great conflict. The first step to peace dialogue in the light of diversity is to bring awareness in hidden conflicts. The latent conflict has to become an open conflict. If we don't talk, we will have a latent conflict with all its consequences. It sounds paradoxical. In order to achieve peace in the light of cultural diversity, we have to start with making the latent conflict open. Translators are necessary to explain and understand what is going on in intercultural encounters. The translators have to know about their own cultural imprint. In addition, they have to know about the other culture. It helps to understand how, for example, the Japanese behave as they behave, and to understand how the Scandinavians behave as they behave. The aim is that the awareness of misunderstanding grows, and if people learn something about their own preconditions, they will understand something about the preconditions of the counterpart. Let me mention the second conflict, the imbalance of power, and I will call it just peace. We have heard before something about a definition of peace. I go very much along with that we heard before. One big issue is in societies with a cultural diversity is the imbalance of power. And this is the second type of conflict. Often people are unaware of imbalance and injustices. Increased awareness of issues, needs, and interests lead to demands for changing situations. Well, such demands are not even heard nor taken seriously by those benefiting from the situation. Probably they prefer to keep things as they are. But an intercultural or also interreligious dialogue has to mention and to talk about power. Who has the power? The minority, whoever it is, will often have difficulties to be seen as equal. Of course, it is different from region to region, but power is a factor we have to keep in mind. What is the goal? The goal is peace. But I asked, like Dr. Kavuras asked, what is peace? And probably we first think there is no war. There is no fighting between different nations. There is no fighting between different groups within one nation. And there is maybe no violence between Muslims and Christians or other ethnic groups. In short, we usually connect peace with silencing of weapons. Nevertheless, peace is more than that. Peace is more than absence of war. And peace is also more than tolerance. Tolerance means you don't like somebody, but you don't fight against him. Tolerance means you don't agree with somebody, with his religion, with his color of skin, with his culture. You just tolerate him, but there is no relation to each other. The great German writer and poet Johann Wolfgang Goethe said, "Tolerance should be a temporary attitude. Tolerance must lead to recognition. To tolerate means to insult. Therefore, tolerance is not sufficient." Again, what is peace? I will share a definition of the World Council of Churches that was founded in 1948. It is an association of more than 300 churches all over the world. And they started, the World Council of Churches started in 2001, the so-called Decade of Overcome Violence. This program is an initiative that seeks to encourage and connect, to prevent and to overcome violence, to overcome also different types of violence. However, violence does not only mean physical violence. There is physical violence, but there is also psychological violence. There's violence against persons and against things. There is intentional violence and unintentional, and so on. And these different understandings of violence have consequences for the understanding of peace. One result of the decade of overcoming violence was that the churches that are involved started to talk about peace with a different term. More exactly, they added a small but important word. This word qualifies the understanding of peace, and they talk about just peace. We have heard before sustainable peace. I think they go along, but just peace means there is no peace if there is no justice. Once again, there is a narrow understanding of peace. In this understanding, peace means the absence of war. And moreover, there is a wider understanding of peace. There is a wording within the churches, just peace. I think it is important, if we talk about peace dialogue in the light of cultural diversity, to qualify peace in this way. Let me end with 2 points, 2 aspects. We should discuss the perspective of dialogue of peace in the cultural diversity at least at 2 levels, a personal level and a social level. And I think transformation is the key word for both levels. Culture can change. Culture is changing. That means our orientation system can change. It is a little bit like changing the software. I think you can realize this when you look at yourself, and you can realize that you maybe adopted different cultural elements from Europe, and maybe you lost some original cultural elements that you got during your childhood. People can change in different cultural circumstances. And dialogue, if you go in a cultural dialogue, it is a risk. You risk changing your perspective. You risk changing yourself. And I think this is a contribution also for peace building, that you can change your own perspective on different events. Transformation is a keyword in personal development and also in social, at a social level. Transformation provides a holistic understanding. The idea of transformation does not suggest we simply eliminate our control or control conflict, but rather follow its dialectic nature. I think conflicts are somehow necessary to achieve peace, to promote peace. But as Dr. Kawura said before, therefore it needs a culture of negotiation. I think this is a key point, a culture of negotiation to come through conflicts to a wider sense of peace. As I said, a just peace. Thank you very much. I will end at this point. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Herman. It's a very important point you have raising. I like very much what you have said. There is a visible aspect of culture and the invisible aspect of culture, and I do believe that the invisible, this is very, very important. We have to discuss it. Also, you have mentioning something very important. that how the culture shape religion and how the religion shape culture. This is very important for us. Also you discuss about you raise also the point of power and equality, and this is very important. For us, you have mentioned something I would like to see for all my colleagues and all my friends here. He mentioned the orientation changes, and of course, you mean the culture, of course. And I think we have most of migrants abroad are suffering from orientation changes. Especially, we can see that in the second and the third and the fourth generation. Anyway, you and my friend Pablo Caburas, you have raised many points. I don't believe it that we can cover all this point in only today in one event. We need to organize different event to discuss each point. Very important. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we have here and we share view with our speaker. Now I open the panel for the audience. I think who will be start? Start with Dr. Sarwat Qadis, because he wanted to speak about what he has here. Dr. Sarwat, you can speak now.
Yes, thank you very much. I would like at first to thank our two speakers, our two brothers, because we have this theme, which is very important, especially nowadays. But I would like to ask Dr. Mohammed Zibzaf that we have together this opportunity from our union, and to Mr. Abul Fadl, who is the General Secretary of our union. And I am happy that we have some of our Egyptian brothers and our sister, Dr. Huda Darwish. Thank you. I heard that Dr. Ikram, Dr. Goa, Dr. Ahmad Darwish from Egypt. Maybe it's for you important to know, for some of you who maybe they don't know, we have the International Academy for Dialogue in Egypt. And now we work together with our union in Europe. So we call our team now Egyptian Europe, and especially Egyptian Europe or European Egyptian, that we have our goal, especially as Egyptian who are living in Europe, have a very good relationship and contact with their countries where we live. And that means that we are sorry that we don't have from Arab countries or American or Canadian or Australian, only from Europe and Egypt. And this is very important that we don't speak only together from Egypt, but we have to win from Europe, from different countries in Europe. For example, as we have now from Greece or from Germany, so we would like to have from Switzerland, we would like to have from France, from England, from Ireland, from everywhere in Europe. And maybe when we are complete together, maybe we meet together after this time of Corona to the end, then we would like to meet together maybe in the academy in Egypt, in Cairo. So I would like to say our motto is, we live together, we think together, and we work together. not only we have dialogue, as always we do, and to meet and greet and so on, but we would like to understand and to think together what can we do to reach our goal, and our goal is peace. This is our motto. We live together, we think together, and we work together. But it is important about the points which we heard from the two speakers, very important, especially if we speak about violence and peace. How can we reach? This is a very important point which we try. But I would like to give you example which we have reached here in Germany. We have in our country, aber auch in also in our citizens, in our parliament, in every city, beside the parliament, then we have from all the world what we call international parliament. This international parliament means we come together from all countries which we live. You see in our city now in Langen, some of you were in Langen, we have maybe only 35,000 people who are living in Langen. But you know how many people who are not from Germany and came from other countries? 6,500. That means about 20% from the city, which maybe we say a small city, are not from Germany. And this is very important, how to make the relationship. And then we make it more that we have in Offenbach, as example, about 30 cities and villages. And then we have from one city, from only one city, two. That means we would have a 60 person who are maybe for maybe 2 million. What is our, why I give you this information? Because this is only in Germany that you have in the German parliament people who are from outside, not from Germany, not in Germany, born in Germany. And the question is, why? That they say that they would like to have in every parliament, in every city, one or two from these countries to be representative, and they can ask and they can do what is for these people who are living in Germany. I think this is a very good idea, which we didn't see anywhere, even in Germany. Why? To have integration, what we say integration, and to live together and to think together and to work together. Thank you very much, and you are very welcome. This is the first time that we meet together. I hope that we have more and more meetings till maybe next year we meet together in Cairo in our International Academy for Dialogue. Thank you, Dr. Muhammad, that you give me this opportunity.
Thank you for what you said. But I think the representation of the foreign in any parliament, it's something is related to the constitution of the country. And I think some steps to do that for any country. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we have three professors with us. We need to hear their question and we need to hear their comment. The first, of course, lady is first, of course, Dr. Huda Darwish and Professor Ikram, and also Professor Muhammad Salah. He asked to participate in this discussion. We ask him to see him in the screen. We will start first with Dr. Huda Darwish to ask any question or to give any comment about it. Please open the mic, please. Can you open the mic?
Yes. Hello.
Hello.
And
Yes.
good evening, everybody. I would like to express my honor and the pride to be a member of this civilized forum, which aims to lay the foundation for constructive dialogue and to fight hate and hostility among the people of the world. I would like to introduce myself. I am Huda Darwish, a professor and head of religions department at Zagazig University, Egypt. Also, I'm a member of the International Dialogue Academy based in Cairo, headed by Dr. Sarwat Qadis. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to present some basic rules and ideas in the way to establish an effective dialogue that serves humanity. First, educational institution must place the correct foundation for dialogue and support the common values between religions. Second, pay attention to openness to the world through the exchange of visitors between representatives of different religions. Third, producing articles, essays that show the religious community, including religious texts on tolerance and peace from the holy sources of each religion. Fourth, spread the interfaith values in the different media outlets and communicate in various languages. Fifth, developing a booklet that includes the approach of each religion in dialogue through sacred box, terms of dialogue, methods of speaking and addressing others. At the end, creating writings that show the regulus commonality between the Abrahamic religions. Again, I would like to express my honor and appreciation to be a member of this great group. Thanks, Mr. President, Prof. Mohammed Zivzaf, and I wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Huda. I would like to say to say something, and I would like the speaker to share our view about these 2 points. I hope that I can hear them from them comment about what she said. She raised two issues very important. The first issue, the article which consider obstacle against the tolerance, and this is really exist. This issue is exist, and also she raised the other issue is very important, is the issue of media and the tolerance. This also is very important point. Before I go to the Professor Ikram, if I can hear from Professor Kaburas and also from Dr. Andreas, his opinion about these 2 points. How we can deal with this issue? Thank you.
Thank you.
I start with I start. Please open the mic, Professor Pablo. Mic. The mic. Can you open the mic? The voice.
I know.
Yes.
Now maybe it's okay.
Okay.
So the 2 questions, because before my colleague, Professor Herman, raised a few significant points touching on the issue of tolerance. So yes, I also consider tolerance to be an aggressive perspective. Of course, we all understand the meaning of tolerance, and one has to be tolerating the other, discrimination and whatever. But this is not peace. This is a political, economic, ideological a response to difference. Of course, societies, contemporary societies, this is the immediate way to go for establishing some level of equity, of equality, of accepting the other. But that's not enough, if I may say. Peace has to have a transformative element to it. Tolerance must not be negotiated. Respect for the other must not be negotiated. So just to answer indirectly the very important points, because they are so big and we need time to go through the details, I wanted to emphasize this, that it is important to go from the I am the one, to the we. This is the so-called politically correct, ideal, economic, social, ideological orientation. But the difficult thing is to couple, to blend the I being transformed to the we, with the I transcending itself as such. That's the spiritual question. That is going beyond our ego consciousness, because one may retain the ego by developing the we. But with the we together, the collectivity may still entertain an aggressive stance against humanity. So for me, tolerating others may be important to achieve some kind of peace in a politically correct manner. But unless culture realizes the spiritual transcendence, the going beyond ego consciousness, tolerance cannot be really fulfilled, realized.
Thank you, Professor. Now I go to Dr. Andreas. Dr. Andreas, what you hear about the issue raised by Professor Huda Darwish? Okay. Yes.
Okay. Now, thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Kaburas, for that what you just mentioned. So I feel really, I think we very much agree on that topic, what tolerance and peace means. one point that Professor Darwish mentioned is about the media. Well, it's a very important issue, of course, but I think to do research on that, to get information what is going on in internet, it is necessary to get younger people. So they are more used with that media. They are this part of their life. So I myself, I feel sometimes not competent to, you know, to realize what is going on in the internet. So that could be at least one issue, one point that younger people can be involved in this very important work. So as you've seen, my working place is the so-called behind here Centrum Ökumene. Most of us are about 50, 60 years old of the reference who are working there. So we discussed this issue. We need younger people because they are, as I said, they are more familiar. They know more about moving in this in this media. So maybe this is an idea to also to attract younger people in this forum. So thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. We have also young, I see in the screen some young, I see Dina, Adil, and I see Nada. Share me something like this. If you have any question, prepare your question after we hear first the Professor Ikram, one of the very good professor. Professor Ikram, I like to open for you the mic. Can you open the mic? Yes. Now we hear your question. We hear all your comments.
Yes, I am Ikram Hanawi. I am chairman of Media Council and the Evangelical Church in Egypt. And I am teaching in the Evangelical Theological Seminary and in the Comparative Religion College in Zakazig. And I am a journalist in Shuruk journal. I like just say how can we live together and we think objectively because as my thinking in our lands or our communities that we don't have trains to accept each other, man and woman, black and white. We have many differences, and always we speak about the differences, not speak about what we agree together to live together and to help each other. I enjoyed very much the two speeches now, and thank you for your inviting me, and I hope we can meet together in the future.
Thank you, Professor Ikram. Professor Ikram, Dr. Herman, especially for Dr. Herman, Dr. Kaburas will participate about this. He really raised the issue of racism and discrimination, as I have here from him.
Yeah.
How can you talk about Germany? How they can face this kind of attitude, racism and discrimination? Because in Greece, as I understand, we do not have such this issue. Maybe some individual act, but it's not major. So I would like to ask Dr. Andreas Hermans, how is the culture in Germany dealing with the issue of racism and discrimination? I open the mic again for you. Okay. Okay, doctor.
Okay, now, yeah, two points. Sorry. The first one is about training. So my institution, the Zentrum Ökumene, we really emphasize the training. So Dr. Ekram just mentioned it, that there are not so many possibilities to learn in a really also academic session, in an academic situation about other cultures. So often we are learning by doing in this intercultural meeting. So I think this is also for the Academy of Dialogue in Cairo to start with courses, to start with teaching about different cultures, so that we have possibilities. So at least in my profession, in my surrounding, where I am responsible for, we try to start with, or not we start, we intensify this work on courses, on cultural understanding, so that more people are involved and know about different cultures. This is the first point. And the second point is that we have in Germany this discussion about racism. So in our constitution, there is this word race. And so there's now a discussion on that. So it's still going on, and it came from the United States about that George Floyd. We all know about him, how he was killed by a policeman, and it's a big issue, and it's a discussion right now. There is not an end yet, and it's good that there is not an end yet. It's a topic now, and it's good that we have that topic talking about racism, and you can read it in the newspapers, you'll see it on TV, and therefore it is good to discuss it. At least this is a step forward, as I would like to say. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Professor Pablo. Did you want to add something? Please, I open the mic for you. Yes, I hear you.
Yes. To understand the other, you need to understand and know your own limits. The topic of racism, if brought to the context of, say, a European society, a European country, the other, which is supposedly the object of racist ideology or practice, it is always an other. I want to emphasize this point. It is always an other. For the consciousness of the ego, the other stays in front of the eye of the subject, and therefore the subject, although he or she may discuss ways of coping with the aggression, with the violence, with the conflict aimed at the other, the objective other, usually does not touch the aggression within, the conflict within. So the I, which tries to understand the other and furnish a theory, an approach about racism, countering racism, usually does so without touching, transforming the ego. The ego needs to know his or her own limits, needs to know the inner racism and how it is built. And in order to do so, it has to deal with representation and repositioning. How do we represent the world? How is our imaging of reality formed, constructed? And what can we do to go beyond, to transcend the habitual imaging? That's a related question. and it's not a luxury to go through a self-reflexive understanding of racism and only focus on other reflexive, outside reflexive perspective of the other. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Now I go to Professor Muhammad Salah before I go to our young ladies Dina and Nada. So Professor, we need to hear good. We see now your video. Now I open for you the mic. If you can open the mic now. Yes, now we hear you. We can receive your question or your comment to our speaker.
Assalamu alaikum. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Good evening for everybody. It's my great honor, it's my pleasure to be in this dialogue. And from my point of view, it's very, very, very important one, because always humanity dialogue, it is the only way to be in peace. And as you heard, the first word I said, the Islamic greeting general one, peace be upon you, or peace on you. So not most, all religions, all cultures, they are based on peace. But sometimes, as our great speaker said, that ego or the personality sometimes, let's say, forget about the humanity and search for themselves, not for the justice or the balance between each other. So from my point of view, building the peace culture or building the trust behind the peace, it needs some efforts from everybody, with himself or herself first, and then with the community around. I say this why? Because this law, it is somehow built in. Even the child, if you ask the children, how can they behave or how can they do with others? Everyone looking for what he needs. But for a moment, if you put like a mirror in front of someone, the reflection law gives that you have to respect the one in front of you, because if you ask something, try to ask what you give, or if you are sure that you do something good, so you will receive the same doing. So it is somehow like built in our nature, that always you ask for something good. If you ask the good thing from other, so you have to do the good, to respect or to expect the good doing from the other one. And there is a very famous saying from one of the Islamic leaders after Prophet Muhammad. He said, people are two kinds. One is brother in religion, and the other the correspondent in humanity. So almost all of them are equal, but we need to speak, we need to respect the other. Respecting the other, it is the only way to live in peace. Thank you so much, Mr. President, Dr. Zibzar. Thank you very much, our great speakers. And I'm very glad, and I hope to continue speaking and holding such webinars or virtual meeting until to have the opportunity to meet again face to face.
Yes,
thank you so much.
Muhammad, here is, in my opinion, he speak about 2 points. One point, Dr. Andreas himself speak about it, about the home, about the role of the home in the cultural tolerance. But he also mentioned about that all the religion call for the peace. Then still the question, did the culture and religious identity cause the war sometime? I wanted to hear from Professor Pablo and Dr. Andre about these 2 points and about the point as raised by Professor Muhammad Salah. So we'll start with you, Mr. Kaburas.
Okay, I just need to understand what is the question. The question is what,
The question,
please.
he talks about the rule of the home, that this
Yes.
should be from the child. Should be,
Yes.
he know how about the tolerance, he know about
Yeah.
the peace.
So, listen, in cultural anthropology, we have a term
Yes.
describing the importance of child raising. We use the word enculturation, meaning that one learns how to be cultural. We are not born cultural beings. We become cultural beings. And with culture, there is also culture making and cultural transformation.
Mhm.
This means that humans need the necessary environment, usually provided by the parents, by the school, by the society, especially in traditional societies where there is a face-to-face reality. So family and society, they go hand in hand together. What you learn at home, you learn also out there, living with other people. So the human psychology, the human being needs the right space and environment to grow and grow this attitude of loving the others, of becoming open and accepting the other. But, you know, there is another issue here, that this tendency to raise in a higher view of the world that is closer to the we and respecting the other by developing the we attitude has to be reconsidered, because nowadays we often launch the criticism that people have become very individualistic, that they have lost the interest of family and also raising their children with care, as it was the case for many years in the past. Now, such a materialistic, individualistic way of raising children, it can create a new generation with the right concepts. But the point is not only to have the right concepts, the right attitudes, but themselves to be spiritual, themselves to be alive in terms of empathizing with humanity, feeling inside them what it means to be a fellow being. So my response is yes, home is very important. Everything has to be based on home and school and the society. But we need to be careful, because nowadays home, school, society, they are not working the way they used to work in face-to-face societies. There is an anonymous reality, a mass culture. So we need to train our people, our young people, not only with the right concepts, but with the right attitudes towards transforming themselves. This is not there and has to be developed. The spiritual aspect next to the cultural right attitudes towards the others.
Thank you, Professor Pablo. Now we will go to hear, of course, from Dr. Andreas Herman. Doctor, we hear you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, as we heard, it's the starting point is the home. The starting point is the house of the parents. The starting point of be shaped by culture is the school and the first friends and so on. This is right, but I want to emphasize the key word I mentioned and we just heard it, transformation. that culture is not fixed, that culture is not closed. Culture is dynamic, and dynamic means there is a development. There's not looking backwards. Of course, sometimes we have to look backwards, but looking in the future. And I want to take the example Professor Salah mentioned about the greetings. That means if there is an encounter between two people, they can create the atmosphere. Their words they use, the sentences they speak, they are actors of that reality they create. And this is if you want it like this, something like a new culture. You can create a new culture. Everybody who is open, he's not fixed by his history, so should be open to the men, the women, the people around him, and have the strengths, have the ideas, have the power to develop his own culture together with people with another cultural background. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now we will go to young generation. We have, of course, we will hear after we hear from the young ladies with us about their. We like to share their view with us. It's very important. After that, we will receive a question from Dr. Afaf in Dublin, and we will receive also a question from Mrs. Mervat, and after that we will see what we will do. So now Dina, we would like to share the view with you, and your question and your comment is welcome. Please open the mic. Okay, we hear you.
First of all, good afternoon to everyone. I'm Diana Adel. I'm working in the International Academy for Dialogue in Egypt. I'm very pleased to be among you with all these respectable and amazing info and such blessings to us in order to know how to deal with others and how to deal with other countries. I really had a lot, and I thank everybody who contributed in this Zoom meeting. And one thing that really touched me is that to know the other, I must know myself. This was mentioned. So this really touched me, and I really took lots of notes here, and it's a privilege to have them and conduct them in the future. Thank you so much.
Okay, now we will give comment about what said is very important, but let us listen to Nada. Nada, I will open for you.
Hello everybody. Thank you for having me. I actually have no question to ask to anyone. I am just really proud to be here. And the reason I don't have any question is because Professor Kavaris and Professor Herman, they were very gracious because they have this like a wise professor's attitude of having a start and a middle and an end for every discussion. So they pose the question and they give it an answer. And that makes you truly fulfilled. I'm sorry for being nervous. And I really like what Professor Herman said, and also what Professor Kavaris said about youth and the rule in the everyday. And I want to say, especially for Professor Herman, that there is no youth without professors, great professors that will teach you. You said there is, your organization is 50s and 60s. So we don't really exist without professors like you who are 50s and 60s and so wise and so gracious and so generous to give us the opportunity to learn from you. And I want to thank you for this opportunity, and I have nothing more to say. Thank you very much, everyone.
Okay, so I can come to the for what you say. I think Dina raised something very important, that before you know the other, you have to know yourself. This is very important. This is very, very important. And Nada, she talks about that we, the younger generation should be useful from the experience of the old generation. Anyway, this 2 points is very important, and we need to hear the opinion of the 2 professors, Pablo and Andreas, about it. So now I will open the mic for you, Professor Pablo. Yes, I hear you.
Okay. I think that the 2 ladies raised in a nutshell what I, for instance, and I think Dr. Andreas too, we're trying to establish, namely that there is this need to educate, but not to educate in a mechanical way, but to teach how to love learning, how to love knowing truth, knowing what is there to be discovered, and not just ready-made cliches about knowledge. And why am I saying this? Because know thyself, was the maxim, the slogan that was on the topmost end of the entrance of the Oracle of Delphi, the temple of Apollo in mythology, Greek mythology. So it was a very important saying, expressing the essence of humanity. That is, in order to know the other, you have to know yourself. In order to go to the we efficiently, not like a political authority which only handles members of the society, but the we as a realized togetherness. You have to go beyond yourself. You have to go limits, and therefore to know yourself. This is the main issue. Next to this, there is the importance of teaching the young, not only to the new technologies and literacies, but also providing to them the necessary knowledge from the awareness, self-awareness of going beyond the habitual ego consciousness, and how to do this.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you, Professor. Now we would like to hear the comment of Dr. Andreas. Yes, we hear you. Dr. Andreas.
Yeah.
We hear you now.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, to know myself, I think it's a challenge for all young and older people all over the world to get an answer to this question, who am I, especially in the adolescence and the younger people. They have to find out, who am I? And if young people grow up in their own country, in their own family, I think it's a challenge to get an answer to that question. But the question or the challenge is even larger and greater if they grew up in a different country. Let me give you an example from Germany. Probably you know that in the 60s, in the last century, a lot of guest workers from Turkey came to Germany. So the parents came, they got their cultural imprint from the Turkey, they know where they are. They know who they are because they grew up and they know their culture. Of course, they spend now their time in Germany and so on. But their children, they got both. They went to school or go to school in Germany. They have contacts with German young people, teenagers and so on. At the same time, they get the imprint from their parents and grandparents. So for those young people, young men, women, boys and girls, it's really a challenge to find out something, to know themselves. And to realize that means that we need teachers, that we need people around them who can help them to understand in which type of conflicts those young people are. So sometimes they don't really know, I'm Turkish, I'm German, I'm both. So, and this to find out and get here good answers needs education, needs people who help them, needs translators and yeah, people who are able to understand what is going on. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Now we will go to the Afaf Ali. Afaf Ali is, I would like to mention that she is a member of the Egyptian Women Committee in the Union of Egyptian Community in Greece. Her committee is very, very, very active. They succeed to make one important event. Her opinion is because she member of the women committee, I think women related to the culture, especially in Mediterranean, not only in Middle East, in Mediterranean, very important. So let us listen for what she asked or what she gave comment. Can you open up the mic? Okay, the mic with you. We hear you now.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Good evening, everyone. First of all, before I'm going to start, I would like to thank Dr. Dr. Mohammed Zivzaf so much for this event. I'm going to say event, not dialogue, because I'm really enjoyed by this dialogue today and this conversation today. I'm going to talk about 2006 when our community, they elected me to be a chairperson for Egyptian society in Northern Ireland. Actually, I need to correct, I'm stay in Northern Ireland, Belfast, not in Dublin. But we covering the area as well, Dublin and Ireland, all the Ireland, they join us as Egyptian society in Northern Ireland. I remember when our committee asking me to do a speech, and I was young in this time, and I said, oh, I'm going to stand between all the local people, I mean Irish people, and most of them, they coming from our local parliament in Northern Ireland. It was someone, he's called, maybe, I didn't know if you know him or no, MB Jeffrey Donaldson, Sir Jeffrey Donaldson. And Sir Jeffrey Donaldson, I invited him from DUP party, and I invited other one from Sinn Féin. Both is different, and they was never meet, but I invited them to attend our event and our established Egyptian society in Northern Ireland. And when I talk, what I said about someone, he's very famous, Rudyard Kipling. And maybe you know what he said. He said, East is East and West is West, and they will never meet. But I said, we can meet. I was against him, and I was against what he said. And I gave a good example to our committee and our guests, they attend. I said, today we are invite someone from Sinn Féin and someone from the UB, and both of them, they stay around the table today to celebration our culture, Egyptian society in Northern Ireland. It was my opinion. After a few years, we celebration a day from Ramadan in our parliament in Stormont, and we invite our imam from Egypt, and we pray in the parliament. We break our fasting, and they invited us to the first meal inside the parliament. That's a very good example. We can meet, we can learn from each other. And always when I invited some people to attend our event, I invited all the people. I didn't invite only one from any party. And after a few years, they invited me to be with a party from Northern Ireland. I refused because I like to be with everyone. I didn't like to be with any side. And I think that's a message for peace. If we're going to work for peace and culture, we're going to work together. Second, I really enjoyed by second topic from Dr. Andrian, when he speak about peace and trust. Yes, I believe if we need peace, we need to start, but we need to trust. But if we need to trust someone, we need a peace with him to trust him. I need to know what side it will be, trust the first or peace the first. And my second question to the culture, if we would like to build a good bridge or a strong bridge between all the people around the world to stop the fighting, to stop the war, to stop the argument, how we can understand each other. I believe culture and religion, it's not make any trouble between all the humanity. I think something else, maybe we need to talk about that in the future. What is the problem that the culture, I think culture doesn't make any trouble for anybody. Religion, all the religion, I believe, coming to the peace. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Afaf. Thank you, Afaf. Now, she raised two questions. Mr. Pablo, please can you open the mic? Afaf raised two questions. We will hear, but she says something. I ask you and I ask Dr. Herman about it. It is true that East is East, West is West. That is my question anyway, but you, but you have to answer first.
I knew you were going to ask this. But yeah, we can talk about this, but we can also, I can also respond to the cultural question, referring to the basis of war. That is not culture, neither religion, neither culture nor religion, which are responsible for war culture, for war situations. So what is it? And that, I mean, that blends well with your question about West and East. You see, ideology is not culture. Ideology is the sum of ideas about reality, usually dissociated, taken away from their actual lived experiences. So as people become more abstract, as people become more theoretical, away from a long-standing process in which they shape the ideas, they experience the ideas together with other people. So then ideological systems, in the name of culture and in the name of religion, they can build wars. and they support wars. So you see, we can talk about religion as ideology. We can talk about culture as ideology, but it will not be the religion as experienced by the faithful people who love their sense of the divine. That's different. The practitioners, the people who devote themselves to the divine, it's not the ideology of religion. The people who share views, practices, values as people of culture, this is not how the ideologues and the ideologists make culture. So it's a matter of representation. It is a matter of how we tell ourselves what the reality out there is, and how do we go about to enforce our ideas, to justify the opinions of the few in ways that they can be enforced in the name of the many for the many. That's the tricky thing. And there is no culture or religion that supports it from the point of view of actual experience. So the West and the East is what we make it to be, the West and the East. It's people, it's humanity. And as Aristotle was the first to say, it's ecumeny. Ecumeny is the sum total of humanity, not a global world, not global. Global is a political economic construction, representation of humanity, but ecumeny, which is based on a spiritual understanding of the whole, part and whole. So yes, West can meet with East, provided that there is the right attitude to do so. Otherwise, it will be the victim of its own ideologizing, and West will be always dissociated from the East, as Rudyard Kipling had it, who, by the way, was a colonialist, a British colonialist, and this has to be taken into consideration also.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And also France colonized. Anyway, so East and West, okay, I will put this in my mind when we meet each other personally. Now I go to Dr. Andreas. The mic, please. Can we hear you?
Yeah, okay, thank you. Yeah, I think both is correct. West is West, East and East on the one side, and we can meet. It must not be an opposite. So West is West and East is East means that there are differences. There is a difference in culture, maybe in religion, and so on. So, but if this is the starting point and we come to the second point, we can meet. That means these meetings don't just happen. We have to do something for it. There is effort necessary. Effort is necessary to, for those meetings. I give you an example from Germany. So we have mosques in our cities, like Kassel, where I live, and students, pupils, different types of church groups go there to see the mosque, and a guide will show them the tradition and so on. You know this. And it don't happen so often that churches invite Muslims in their church building to introduce in the building, to introduce in all those things that are within a church and so on. What I want to say is it needs some effort that we can meet and that we can show our own traditions, somebody who belongs to a different tradition. So I like this example from the Ramadan next week, Monday or Tuesday. Ramadan begins again. It's a good weeks that, of course, not nowadays in times of pandemic, to invite people and to tell about own traditions. So both is correct. East is east, west and west, but at the same time we can meet, but this needs effort and we have to do something for it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyway, East and East, though we can meet. That is the voice from Germany. So attention for everybody, they are willing to meet in the idea and ideology. So that is very good news, Dr. Andreas. And now I will go to the Mirbat Khalil. Mirbat Khalil, of course, is member of our association, Union of International Communities. She is also member in the media committee, and now she has to release her question. We'd like to hear from her what's the question, what is the comment about tonight topic. You can hear me? The voice, please.
Yes.
Now I hear.
Good evening to you all. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. First, I would like to thank the dialogue committee who put together this meeting. I would love to take the chance as well to congratulate Dr. Qadis to count him in the German parliament as the representative for all communities. I wish him all the success. I'm really pleased to meet you all, Prof. Herman, Prof. Kavoras, and Dr. Ikram Al-Hinawi, and Dr. Hoda, and the rest of all the viewers. I'm actually an engineer, and the social talk is a little far from my major, but I will try, and I just put some questions together, and I would like, just if you can answer me. I have 3 questions, one for Prof. Kavoras, and the other question for Prof. Herman, and the other question for Dr. Sarwat, if he came back with us by the camera. For Professor Kavoras, well, from your talk and from your conversation, well, you know quite well what are you talking about. So, in your opinion and in your knowledge, which factor of the differences are more likely to cause the violence or the conflict between people? We talked about race, we talked about religion, we talked about many other factors. So if we did kind of a survey, so which the factor which the most can do the conflict? If you like me to carry on the questions and then everyone ask, yes. Dr. Muhammad, yes? Okay. So my second question for Professor Herman, sorry. We specified the conflict is between me and you, us and them. But actually, this is not just a problem. The problem is there is a conflict between us, between people from the same religion, between people from the same faith, between people from the same nationalities. Like if we say Muslims, there is Shia and there is Sunnah. Both, they won't go and pray in each other's mosque. There is in Christian religion, we will find few faiths. There is a Catholic, there is Protestant, there is Orthodox. And actually it's, if you, I live here in England and I have friends from, say, they are Orthodox. They couldn't put their children in the Catholic school unless they change faith. And that's, I think that's just not on. So what can we do to bring these ideas closer? And do you think in our world, which is almost turned to all virtual, even if we come back to normal after that, do you think the virtual world is going to take the most place, which come back to Dr. Hoda's question, the virtual meetings and the virtual conferences will be effective more than even you know, like body talk or face-to-face talk. My third question is to Dr. Qadis. I don't know if you can hear me. All religions are based on love and peace and equality. They all have certain rules and principles. The conflict comes from some people who misunderstood or misinterpret the secret text. So what is the optimal role for the religious institutions that must play to overcome this conflict? And thank you very much. Shukran.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Mrs. Merfat has raised really a question, Professor Pablo. We have to talk about it before, if you remember, about the religious tolerance in the Mediterranean, if you remember, and the cultural diversity. We have discussed this before this point, I don't know, 2 years or something in this issue. But anyway, we have to hear from you about this question. And we have to hear from Dr. Andrea also your answer about her question. But the question which is addressed to Dr. Sarwat, because it's a religious tolerance, we would like also to hear your opinion in it. So now we will start with Professor Pablo. Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much for the lovely question. It's not an easy question. Why? Because one cannot detect special differences as the basis or as the foundation for fomenting violence. But what I can say is that usually violence, and of course there are different kinds of violence, we have to be more specific, because there can be a tolerated violence within the culture. So if you have a culture, you're referring to a particular culture, one can detect aspects of violence within the culture, say the Egyptian traditional cultures or the Greek traditional culture. There's no racism, there is no stereotyping, but there is violence. And societies, face-to-face societies, deal with violence in their own long-standing traditional ways. The problem becomes when people are forced to migrate. For economic or political reasons, they live their long-standing experience where they have lived for ages, and they go into another place. They go to another place. There, since the rationale of moving was economic and not cultural, they maintain, we know this from studying the generations of migrants, they keep to their traditions. They try to safeguard their traditions. What happens with them in so doing is a big question. We don't have time to get into this. But as long as the economic and political conditions of the host country are okay and they are not threatened by it, so collaborating economically and politically accepting and being accepted there, everything is okay. But when their culture comes to the front as a sense of being, true being, because you see, they cannot identify themselves through an economic or political identity as migrants abroad. They have their true inner cultural identity. So there's a kind of schizophrenia, a bifurcation, a polarization. And this may be the difference, and from my point of view, that can light the fire under the necessary conditions.
Thank you. Thank you. My friend, Bob, you have really raised a very important point. And Dr. Herman, Andreas Herman, please, I want you to share with me this view. seemed to me there is we have to discuss in future. One of important point about the topic will be migration mobility and tolerance. This is very important for all receiving country. This is very important for all receiving country, because it's not the issue only, it's tolerance. Now we have xenophobia, we have Islamophobia, we have a lot of issues related for what Professor Kavouras mentioned it. So we have to put this in mind. But before I go to the last speaker, I think I need to hear your answer to Mrs. Medbet. Please, the mic is you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you very much for the very good question. Of course, this is reality. We have a lot of tensions within different churches. We have a lot of tensions on the Muslim side. This is part of the reality, but we have to work with local actors in our city, in our district, wherever we are live. So we can't wait for the day when Muslims, Sunnis and Shiites are together, and Catholics and Protestants. So the challenge is to work with the people we are living with, we are working with in our surrounding. Well, the situation in Germany seems to be a little different from what you have described in England. Of course, we have classes, especially for religious studies. We have a Catholic class, we have a Protestant class, and we have different other denominations, Christian denominations. But at the same time, since a few years, also in Germany, we have Islamic religious studies. That means young Muslim students, pupils can attend a lesson, can attend school classes in Islamic lessons. It's within one building, but different classes. There is a chance to meet and maybe to do cross work. This is the challenge for the teacher, but at least there is a possibility, or it starts to get a possibility that different classes can meet, can work together, have some projects. We need this. We need this more. It's still at the beginning in Germany, but I understood in England there is no way in this direction. And similar cases also the question, and we discuss it in Germany, especially, or for example, a hospital that is run by the church, or also schools that are run by the church. Is it possible, or a kindergarten, that Muslim people can work there, that a Muslim doctor, a Muslim medicine can work in a hospital which is run by the church? So there is a small openness in this direction. I myself, I can't understand why the church hesitates so much, but at least there are small steps, and we can open that we have this mixture also in our church society, and also in our in institutions which are run by the church. The second aspect was about virtual and face-to-face meeting. Well, I think meetings like this tonight, we will have those, I hope, also after COVID has left us. So there is still a chance to get and keep in contact with people over borders, over the nations, between Europe and Egypt and so on. This is a chance, but at the same time, we miss the direct communication. We spend time to have a cup of coffee together in the break and so on. So I think it will be both. Keep those types of meeting, and find back to also the old good ways for communication when we sit together and yeah, get more emotional, yeah, come emotionally close to us. So far from my side.
Andreas, thank you very much, but I would like to tell you something. I think for the issue of the hospital, I do believe that pathology or physiology or anatomy or embryology or whatsoever in science, there is no, we call Islamic pathology or Christian pathology. Pathology is pathology, physiology is physiology. So I don't think so that we need this kind of classification if we put in our mind. But what I can promise you, we will continue with you in contact with you always, and of course you are welcome always with us in any event, because when we establish our international forum for dialogues, it was in our mind that one approach only, that how we can make East and West very close. That is exactly, and this will be only through the people like you, like Professor Pablo, very well educated, they have open mind. That is exactly so. They will not stop, and for sure after Corona will be finished, I think we will organize meeting face to face to enjoy with all of you this meeting. Now I will go to I think last speaker, because we are running out of time. We will go to Mr. Mahmoud Fadl. Mr. Mahmoud Fadl is Secretary General of the Union of Egyptian Communities. He is also a member of the Dialogue Committee. Let us hear from him what he say and what is his comment. I open for you the mic, my brother. Can you open the mic? Can you open the mic? No, I hear you. We hear you.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of Allah, the Merciful. Dear ladies and gentlemen, please allow me personally and on behalf of all the members of the Union of the Egyptian Communities in Europe to express our deep thanks and appreciation to Professor Pavelios Kavoras and Professor Herman Andreas for this wonderful and successful meeting indeed. Many thanks also to everyone who participated in this prestigious meeting, and to Dr. Mohammed Zevzaf, the President of the Union of the Egyptian Communities in Europe. Finally, we hope to keep this fruitful contribution to continue on our regular basis. May Allah, peace, mercy, and blessings be upon you. Thank you.
Thanks, my brother. And with this word, in which we say that we will continue to meet each other, we will continue to meet each other. Finally, thanks for my close friend, Professor Pablo. Thanks for our brother, Dr. Andreas Herman. It was amazing. It was amazing, really. It was amazing for what you said. We will continue to work together. We will work to make it East and West more close, to work for the sake, for tolerance and peace among all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.